Welcome back, story lovers, to Chapter by Chapter. Please consider liking and subscribing so I may continue producing content. Chapter 15. Already sweating within her full protective gear, Marnie entered the lab where trials had started on mice. She glanced over at the animals in their cages, sniffing and squeaking, unaware of their importance. Happy to be working alongside Professor Troy Edwards, she hurried over to where he was standing, examining cells on the screen of the super-electron microscope. "This pestilence is out of control, and mortality is high," he muttered solemnly without looking up from the screen. "The disease is moving faster than a photon racing around the world. There's been a stampede to the hospitals, and even the overflow ones are full. You can't help but think some superior force has power over us mere mortals," Marnie said. "I wonder what we've done so wrong for it to unleash such a perversion of nature against the doors of humanity." Troy turned, and as Marnie leaned on the worktop, she warmly pressed her gloved hand over his and smiled, sympathetically. "Marnie, it's not our job to go there. We're not priests. We must always follow the scientific method. We will always see these outbreaks unless we scientists find the answer, which, thanks to you, we are close to. It's hard to convince the authorities we're not once again stumbling blindly through this chaos. We must submit a paper on our findings urgently." "How far have we got?" Marnie asked. "The mice have already been genetically engineered to contain human genes, enabling us researchers to develop antibodies without testing them on people," he said, pointing to the screen. "So far the results are encouraging. In fact, they're groundbreaking. We have proved we can neutralize most viruses, including the common cold. The treatment may be used preventively and to aid recovery. As you suggested, we're able to bind your universal antibodies to the keys of the corona, blocking their entry into our cells." "And these new viruses," Marnie interjected. "So far, some of them have been caught, but most remain resilient, piercing through the cell's barriers. I still have hope that with some small adaptations, our treatment will work more effectively." "I must say your blood is most peculiar. Have you been infected recently, as there are ingredients in it that none of us can identify or understand? Probably our incompetence. Things are changing by the day, and there appears to be a non-typical antibody, which we've separated and are currently investigating more deeply." Troy moved the cursor over an unusual microorganism, which appeared extremely active. "In truth, Marnie, something strange is happening here, and I need more of an explanation. I will keep any secrets you have, but we're at war here against death. People are terrified at what's coming, and so far, we only have your blood to work with, and there's not enough." The moment was intense. Marnie felt her jaw tighten with an inundation of fear. The truth was too absurd to mention, and would expose her to disgrace and shame. How could she say she'd been bitten by some unknown monster? In the following pause, she could scarcely breathe. Troy regarded her with a pleading expression, and in reply, she raised her eyebrows and shrugged her shoulders. "Nothing of significance has happened," she said weakly. "As you know, I rarely get ill. It's imperative we prevent the further harvesting of human lives. We would like you to keep donating blood." Marnie wanted to forget what had happened in the house. It was beyond bizarre and utterly unbelievable, and the return of Shadow was also something that, as an adult, she knew she should hide. In childhood, the lonely talking to the invisible was rarely questioned or sometimes thought endearing, but in adults it was considered a sign of madness. Recently, out of fear of unwanted prying, she cut everyone out of her life and only communicated with her colleagues. Shadows speaking in her head increased when she was isolated, but he was a comfort and never malicious, unlike the voices from Psychosis, which often had evil intent. Suddenly, she remembered Conran. How could I have forgotten him? She thought with alarm. I must not lose him. I love him. While with him, I'm sane. She studied the examples of battling microbes flickering in front of her, while she only half listened to Troy's explanations on how the new antibodies blocked entry to the cells. "There's something else I need to tell you." They turned to face each other, and Marnie saw that the corners of Troy's mouth had dropped. He was frowning and looked acutely disturbed. "A whistleblower came to me the other night," he said in a lowered voice, and glanced around. "Doctors are actively influencing nurses to kill their sickest patients, especially the elderly, by administering lethal amounts of morphine and sedatives, and then not providing oxygen for their suppressed breathing. They say it's palliative care to make room for the young new arrivals. They're deliberately cutting the golden thread, euthanasia. You mean like the killing nurses during the Second World War? They're sucked into it with subtle manipulation, a mixture of fearing for their jobs, group dynamics, and by being told they shouldn't extend their patients' suffering, Troy added. Murder is murder. I took an oath, and so did they. And if it's not stopped, where will it lead? I've reported it to the authorities, but if they're behind this, I might disappear, and you will have to take over. Worldwide, people are reacting beyond normal. The impact of this resurgence of death is sending people crazy. The old excuse of innocence due to carrying out orders, Marnie said, noticing an uplifting rush of her old dread. Humankind has two faces, and one is unbelievably ugly. I'm telling you this because of Conran, he whispered, staring at her intensely. Marnie, you must stop separating yourself from people. When they're out of sight, you still have to care. He gazed at her with a knowing expression, emphasising his point. Conran is young, she answered. The policy also applies to those who are severely sick. Marnie shivered under the harsh light. He understood her too well. How she was skilled at pushing unwanted thoughts to one side and screwing down concerns she should be paying attention to. She eyed him gratefully, spontaneously took his hand in both hers, shook and rushed to the door. Thank you, Troy, she called. Take him home. A ventilator will do more harm than good. He needs gentle oxygen. As fast as outwardly acceptable, Marnie hurried through the corridors down the darkening passage of unreality towards the hospital. Somewhere she knew Shadow was taking on her persona, providing her with an alibi. Flashing her badge, she passed by the nurses' workstations, all of whom seemed unconcerned by the person in the mask and protective suit. Marnie used her pass key to enter the critical care ward. The smell of cleaning fluid hit her first, followed by the sounds of struggling breathing and machines. The place was crowded with activity, nurses and doctors, hardened by exhaustion and witnessing a stream of horror. Some patients were intubated, the once valued elderly, or those with underlying health issues, all with a tube down their throats, destined to never wake from their sleep. Others were sat upright, staring into the ether, struggling for every breath, their lungs tugging hard, causing their bellies to rise and fall in a fluttering motion. It was wrong to disturb the sick, but it was better than leaving the man she loved to the slaughterhouse. She found Conran sitting up in bed, sucking on a handheld machine which provided him with oxygen. Her emotions bubbled. Hi, I managed to snatch some time. Conran took the mask from his face. My colleagues and friends have all gone, he said in a croaky voice, and with tears in his eyes. Marnie had anticipated the worst, and was surprised to find he could still speak despite his laboured breathing. I'm ill, but better than most. My oxygen levels are low, but I've refused the ventilator. Marnie leaned in, and with parted lips whispered in a solemn tone, You're not safe. I've heard rumours of so-called mercy killings. I'm going to get you home. Conran stared at her with large, melancholy eyes. At that moment, she realised she hadn't thought of a plan other than to reach Conran's bedside. She straightened, and with all her senses on alert, flicked a look around the ward, glancing over frail people, hoping to spot a porter. She turned back to the patient, smiled, took his hand and squeezed gently. Conran's eyes popped with panic. A young doctor was at her side. Do you have permission to be here? He said directly. Marnie's anxiety levels rocketed and her cheeks flushed. The elderly doctor she'd known for years and who initially agreed to try her blood plasma on Conran had died. This young man was cut from a different cloth and was there to impede her actions and prohibit her from any involvement with his patients. Marnie had a renewed appetite for a challenge and was prepared to fight for Conran. I'm from the research facility, she replied, and flashed her identity tag. We have reason to believe this patient may be of vital interest to our antibody study. He has survived while many have died. I'm afraid we don't allow any visitors on this ward, and it goes against procedure to release any patient into the hands of another without it being discussed with the board during our daily meetings. I will have to call security tension radiated between them as Marnie glared with hostility. The government has given us priority over all medical departments, as the only way out of this mess would be to develop treatments or a vaccine. We have permission for access to anything which will aid our progress, Marnie said weakly. The man dismissed her argument and turned to the phone for help when Marnie heard firm footsteps and saw Troy with a porter striding up to the young doctor. "Are you causing problems for my young assistant?" Troy said humorously, while asserting his position of power. "I'm sorry, Marnie. I was delayed." Marnie sensed conflict whirling around the doctor's brain. "Professor, I'm sorry, but I was following procedure. We didn't receive any mention of this at the morning meeting. That's my fault. I forgot to place it on the list of topics. This virus is displaying some macabre trickery, but we believe we've identified something in the blood which could outwit the disease." "So you just need bloods?" the doctor said. Troy was about to reply when the fire alarm wailed, alerting everyone to more urgent actions. The young doctor rushed off to follow a new procedure. Under Troy's instructions, the porter found a gurney and slid it parallel to the bed. The bed was lowered, and Conran lay listlessly watching proceedings as many hands reached out and swaddled him with a sheet and rolled him onto the wheeled stretcher. They rushed out of the ward like children chasing away a fearful storm. Leaving behind the tormented voices issuing escape plans, they entered the corridor. "Where do we go from here?" Marnie whispered as they slowed. "The fire is real," Troy said. "I can smell smoke. We must go directly to the underground passage and make for my car." "Will we ever resume a normal life?" Marnie sighed. "I think there are more forces at play here. It seems the whole world is being ploughed over preparing for new seeds. What about our research?" "Not much use without our lives," Troy said, and gestured for her to hurry. "The automatic airlock doors between the hospital and the facility are there to prevent the spread of anything untoward, including fires. Thank you for listening to Chapter 15, Story Lovers. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave comments. You may find all my books on your favourite online stores, Amazon and Audible, or you can follow the links provided. See you next time as our journey continues.